Things are about to get thwacky. With Black Bolt and White Flare out now, this seemed like a better time than ever to have to build a deck all around everyone's favorite Stage 1 Gen 8 Monkey Grass starter, Thwackey. So is it Thwacky's time to shine? Will today's deck be our meta champion? Or is it gonna be a Veluza loser? This is the 825 Deck Challenge. Welcome back, folks. It's time to dive right in, and I'm so excited to try and figure out Festival Lead on my own. The man of the hour is Thwackey. His ability, Boom Boom Groove, allows you to search for any card in your deck that you'd like and place it into your hand, so long as a Pokemon with Festival Lead is in the active spot. I included 3 of him, and then 3 Grookeys for Evo purposes. Then the world was my oyster, and for a hot minute I even considered going completely rogue and not leaning into Festival Lead. But in the end I came to my senses and saw the damage potential provided in Dipplin combined with some of the new Black Bolt and White Flare cards. So what is Festival Lead? What is this deck all about? Well, Festival Lead is an ability that came out in Twilight Masquerade and is donned by a couple of Pokemon, though for the purposes of this deck, Dipplin will be taking the Festival Lead. The Festival Lead ability allows for that Pokemon to attack twice in a row, essentially providing double damage. The one caveat is that in order for Festival Lead to be triggered, Festival Grounds, a stadium, must be active in play. Dipplin's attack does 20 times damage for each Pokemon on your bench, so with the full bench and Festival Lead in play, it could deal 200 damage. I'd actually get it to deal significantly more, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The other main line of Pokemon I had in this deck was the brand new Serperior line from Black Bolt and White Flare. This was an include due to its ability, which grants a plus 20 damage modifier for your Pokemon's attacks, and it would stack both times Dipplin would attack when using Festival Lead. I need to take a moment here to just acknowledge that this include choice is living proof that I'm not looking up deck lists for these decks. These are all 100% made from as scratch as they can be, because it wasn't until after I played with this deck and did this whole video that my brother said to me, why not just use the Stage 1 Lilligant who does the same thing for this deck's purpose but one less Evo. And I didn't have a good reason. I had no clue that Lilligant existed. I actually really liked Serperior here though, because due to the beefy 320 HP status, it never made him a real priority for my opponents to focus. So that plus 20 damage as soon as Serperior got on the board was pretty much permanent for the rest of my matches. For supporters, of course, I ran Festival Grounds as the stadium of choice. We got Buddy-Buddy Poffins as the main way to call out Pokemon, Rare Candy for Serperior Quick Evo, and Hyper Aroma was my A-spec of choice. It allows me to search my deck for 3 Stage 1 Pokemon cards and put them in my hands. In true Bruce Builds deck fashion though, this A-spec hid from my hand pretty much for all of my matches. Then our newest supporter on the block, I included 4 Hildas. Hilda lets you search for an energy and evolution Pokemon and was key to this deck. If I could Boom Boom Groove for Hilda, I'd essentially be getting 2 cards for the price of 1. Bug Catching Set was a massive include here, because it allows me to draw 7 cards from the top of my deck and take 2 cards in any combination of Grass Energy or Grass Pokemon. And considering all of my energy in the deck were Grass Energy and all of my Pokemon in the deck were Grass Pokemon, it would really let me search through my deck to get exactly what I wanted. I was able to include Gust Up in the form of Counter Catcher and Boss's Orders, and then Air Balloon, with the sole purpose to attach the Serperior so he'd be able to retreat for free and not get stuck inactive by my opponent. So this was the deck. Not your grandma's Festival Lead, is it? It was time to see how the deck actually played. In my first casual match, I started with Applin inactive, which left me very nervous, as the poor guy has a mere 40 HP and he feels ripe for the picking. Apple joke. Luckily, after drawing my first card, I had in my hand the full Serperior EX line, as well as a Dipplin, so it would just be a matter of buying time, and I'm sure I'd draw into supporter to help build it up sooner or later. I did draw into Festival Grounds and continue to plow ahead, but my opponent was not slowing down, and he was playing a new Electric Box deck centered around the new Electros. Unfortunately, things escalated quickly, like very quickly, and not with a single boom nor any groove on my end. My deck so swiftly got handled, with me only able to take a single prize card and my opponent finishing me off with an Amp You Very Much heard around the world, courtesy of Iron Hands. As soon as I was out of the round, I immediately went back to the deck editor as I had an epiphany. I'd included Vengeful Punch as a way to dish out a little extra damage, but had realized Black Bolt and White Flare had an even more Vengeful Punch I should have been packing this whole time. Brave Bangle. Now this tool attaches to a non-rulebox Pokemon and does an additional 30 damage to EX Pokemon, so yet another damage stacker for my Dipplins when facing off against EX Pokemon, hitting for a potential 300 if combined with Serperior's modifier in Festival Grounds. I also tried out adding a single Teal Mask Ogerpon just to possibly increase hand draw. I wasn't sure if it would work, but why not just give it a whirl. I headed into the next round, and already with my starting hand, I was feeling much better. I had 2 Applins and a Grookey, along with a Festival Grounds and a Bug Catching Set and Iono all in my hand. I was able to rip through cards on my first turn, setting up my bench perfectly with 3 Applins in play, a Snivy, and 2 Grookeys. Iono would give me a Dipplin in hand and another Bug Catching Set that would fetch me Thwackey and a Grass Energy. My opponent was clearly running a Terra Box deck of some form, so I passed it on over to them and they began to set up Raging Bolt before taking a knockout using their Fan Rotom on my active Applin. This let me put the Applin with Grass Energy into active, and I had no clue how much fun I was about to have. First, I evolved Applin up to Dipplin, so that the Festival lead ability would be on the Pokemon in active. Next, I evolved up Grookey to Thwackey, and was able to, for the first time ever in my Pokemon TCG journey, because Pidgeot has never really been my cup of tea, search my deck for any card I wanted. What a world. I was so overwhelmed and didn't quite yet realize the full potential of draw any card. So I just took a Dipplin and headed back. I'd reflect on this moments later and realize I should have taken the Thwackey to then evolve the other Grookey that was on my bench, and then use that Boom Boom Groove to take a Hilda or Rare Candy to be able to get access to the Dipplin I had initially gone for, on top of potentially an additional card. But hey, that's why it's called learning, right? I did the wave and took out Fan Rotom, and because I had Festival Grounds out, I then followed it up with a knockout on the Hoot Hoot, put into active, making a 2-prize turn for me. They responded with Raging Bolt taking out my active Dipplin, but I had nothing to fear because I had already set up a backup Dipplin last turn, and the flow of the deck was making sense to me. Essentially, if I can get my Pokemon set up as quickly and swiftly as possible, it would be too overwhelming for my opponent to truly prioritize anything, because I'd have so many pieces going at once. Taking out one Dipplin wouldn't matter because I had a backup. Same for Thwackey. This turn I did the optimal Thwackey move I should have done on my previous turn by getting them both online. And then I retrieved Arven, which got me Rare Candy to get a Serperior up and attach 2 Brave Bangles and take out Raging Bolt with plenty of damage to spare. This was bonkers. And with my opponent having no energy left on their board, they conceded. Wait, why was that as fun as it seemed? Something about having so many options and so much choice with a fantastic single prize attacker, plus the Black Bolt and White Flare utils were coming in clutch. I ended up playing more casual matches than I usually do, because I really wanted to know this deck a little bit more before going into the final round. There's definitely a dance to this deck that feels very simple at first, but the more you do the dance, you realize that the decisions in front of you are actually very nuanced, and the dance is a lot more complicated than you might realize. I did end up dropping the Teal Mask Ogerpon, and instead replace it with some Super Rods, going all in on the Dipplin attack. Something else really funny to me is that when it came time to write this script and review the footage, I remembered this deck winning a lot of the casual matchups I did before going into the final round. But in actuality, its matchups were pretty brutal. I had lost to Ethan's Typhlosions, Eevee Box, and I even got dunked by a Trapagos after me not being able to get an active Pokemon out for multiple turns. I was learning though, and out of fairness, I tried not to do too many more casual matches, and decided it was finally time to head into ranked for the final round to determine if Thwackey would be a meta champion or Veluza loser. Decks have a lot of things going for them right now. For the past 2 months, I've picked up and have been utilizing Raychen's Toadstool EX deck, and while I'm not quite where I'd wish I was with it, the grass of it all brings a lot to the matchups you're likely to find in ranked mode or at tournaments, as both Grimmsnarl EX and Charizard EX, due to its Terra, are weak to grass, leading to easier knockouts. And the deck I'd be going up against in this final matchup was one that fell right into that same trap. Cynthia's Garchomp, weak to grass. Potential to be a 400 HP menace, but with Festival Grounds and a Dipplin with a full bench, I'd be able to take it out in one Festival lead enhanced attack. I'm getting ahead of myself though, because this match lasted a lot longer than it should have, due to me starting a Grookey in active, and my opponent leading with a Maractus. And while I utilized my first turn with Buddy-Buddy and Bug Catcher to get as well set up on my bench as possible, my opponent began to set up their bench, and used Maractus to lock my Grookey into place, because Maractus' corner attack does 20 damage and prevents the Pokemon hit by it from retreating. Further, its Exploding Needles ability places 6 damage counters on the active Pokemon when it's knocked out by damage from an attack. So my Grookey was in for the long haul. I tried to use bosses to sort of switch things up, but instead Spiritomb that I bossed up went right back to the bench and Maractus came right back out, and I was cornered again. Eventually, with my opponent's bench far more built up than mine, my active Grookey was knocked out and I was able to promote Dipplin, which opened up a world of possibilities as Boom Boom Groove was now up. Let's Boom Boom. I grabbed my Hyper Aroma to ensure I'd be able to Boom Boom next turn, threw down Festival Grounds, and utilized my Counter Catcher to bring up the 400 HP Cynthia's Garchomp EX. This was gonna be satisfying. They had both a Munkidori, Spiritomb, and Maractus still online, but my game plan from here on out was to take only knockouts and not leave any damage on the board. This plan worked to my benefit when on my next go, instead of dealing with the Maractus, I Boom Boomed into a second Boom Boom and bossed up the Gabite for a knockout. Wow, what a sentence that was. Boom Boomed into a Boom Boom and bossed up the Gabite. The Maractus was able to finally take out the Dipplin in active, but with no other real attacker set up and my Boom Booms not going anywhere anytime soon, my opponent very likely saw the writing on the wall and conceded, leading this deck to be a meta champion. Alright Festival Lead diehards, how did I do? Take a look at the deck list below and really analyze it, and let me know if you think if there was any really weird includes or anything that you thought maybe really helped the deck. If I were to go back and make a few changes, I would take out a Hilda and put in maybe a single Ignition Energy just to have Serperior on lock as a backup attacker in dire straits. I'd also throw in a Black Belt or two to ensure I can one-hit KO even something like Dragapult. I'm genuinely curious how a Dragapult matchup would have gone against this deck, because I feel like I'd probably get stomped by Dragapult, but you never know. I thought it was a super fun deck, and with that, my initial foray into Festival Lead was done. Someone had requested an idea to have some sort of ranking system for these decks, and so I felt the only fair way was an average score if the deck is scored in 3 different categories. First, fun factor. How fun was it to play on a scale of 1 to 10? Second, the flow factor. Did the deck have a good flow to it? Was I able to take turns that felt meaningful? And lastly, win equity. Did it become a meta champion? Could it do well against current metas? Does it seem viable? So for today's fun factor, I'd rate Thwackey a 9 out of 10. Flow factor, I'd rate it a 10 out of 10. Once Thwackey was active, possibilities felt endless. And win equity, I'd go with a 7 out of 10. And that gives this deck a final score of 8.6. I'll have to go back through for a special episode or something in the future to rate all the decks I've done so far. And now for the final piece, which Pokemon is next week's deck going to be built around? I've now added the Black Bolt and White Flare Pokemon, so the wheel is up to 851 Pokemon. Let's give it a spin. Shuckle. Ah yes, the very meta-defining Shuckle. The literal mold Pokemon. We're in for something special. Next time on the 825 Deck Challenge.